Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talking Smack. I am your host, Josh Scar. This is where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics. This week, I am joined by the one, the only, the slurpin', Alex Lasden.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm not going to edit out that slurp now because I said that.
Damn it. Well, I'd like to introduce myself. Hello, welcome to Talking Smack. I am your host, Alex. Joining us this week is Josh.
Yeah, that doesn't work because you weren't here
Damn
last week.
I know. I debated editing myself into the audio, but yeah, limitations.
You need the master file, which only I have. You're stuck in your basement.
Which is really sad because that's actually where I'm currently setting up my audio equipment.
Just make sure it's treated.
I will. I'm gonna get some bubble wrap around it, maybe like a Tesla coil, Faraday box, all that stuff to make sure it's safe, protected, government free.
Isn't it sad how Tesla has become almost like a dirty word all of a sudden?
Oh, it's terrible.
I heard Tesla coil and I immediately went, ah.
Oh yeah, a little sucker punch to the heart.
All right, so this week we are going to be talking about our favorite things from 2022, which seems like a great way to kick off the new year is to go back and look at the year. And we're going to talk mostly about things we enjoyed, not go and be like, oh, well, we saw this and this sucked and that sucked, because I don't like skewing negative when possible. We're going to skew positive and just talk about the things we really enjoyed last year. And speaking of things we enjoyed, this week's ad is going to be from The Movie Wire with Justin Henson. And I know Alex is already swooning.
Oh yeah. I'm a simple man. When I get that Spotify push that there's a new episode, I click listen.
As well, you should. Justin he's a great reviewer. I wish I'm so pissed I missed our Avatar episode. Like, I was feeling better at the time that I felt like I could sit through 3.5 hours of a movie with trailers, but like I could not find the 4 hours for like transporting the kids, getting to the theater, getting the kids, and then heading back home and recording a podcast within like 24 hours of that event, or even within hours of that event.
Yeah, well, we missed you. But not really. It was a great episode. You guys should go back and listen.
Definitely. And Avatar is just killing it at the box office right now. It's as of right now, it just hit 1.3 over the weekend. 1.3 billion, I should say.
It has some wild legs at the moment, so we'll see how far it goes.
And it really doesn't have any big competition until Ant-Man comes out at the middle of February. Yeah, it comes out Valentine's Day weekend, February 16th. And then the week after that is Cocaine Bear. So Avatar has like a month and a half of nothing in its way.
I mean, the only thing that can stand in its way is the Chucky knockoff Megan, which comes out this next Friday.
I think that might get a decent push. That's like counter programming to Avatar. It looks like it could be fun and creepy. So like maybe, but who knows? But I think you're mispronouncing it. I think it's like M3gan.
Oh yes, right, Mithrigan.
Yes.
To go back to the ad, I'm sure next week Justin will have a nice review of that.
So yeah, I believe Justin should be having his Mithrigan review up this coming week if he gets a critic review. Otherwise, yeah, he should have one. Obviously, the week the movie drops. But here is Justin to talk about his own podcast instead of us poorly talking about it, and we'll be right back.
He's on the run from the law, falsely accused of murdering his... Wait. Oh, got my scripts mixed up here. Here we go. This makes more sense. The Movie Wire Podcast with host Justin Henson. Hear Justin's movie verdict wherever you listen to podcasts. Tune in to The Movie Wire today.
And we are back. We are here to talk about our favorite things from 2022. And we came up with a list of our favorite video games, movies, TV shows, relaxing activities, friend activities, and our favorite comics and or books. We're going to do this kind of basically in the order that I just said, because that's the way I have it laid out. No real reason other than that. I think we did enlist the caveat that all of these things had to release in the year 2022. So it's not like Ricky and I just started watching Ghosts, which technically debuted in like September, October 2021. So I can't really talk about Ghosts other than the fact that it is good and you should watch it.
Definitely. Love Ghost.
So we're going to kick off with our favorite video games from 2022, of which I only have two because I did not get a chance to play a lot of new video games this year. So Alex, what have you played this year?
I'll immediately break the rules and do a special mention. My wife and I just finished playing a game that came out in 2021 called It Takes Two, which is a lovely couch co-op game with some fascinating mechanics and an adult story in that it is about two adults um, who are going through a divorce and how that impacts their child. I will say that I will special mention it because I actually really enjoyed it. We got it. I got it for her as a Christmas present because she likes doing couch co-op games with me, and we finished it already, and it was about 13, 14 hours. Now that that's out of the way, to actually stick to 2022, my favorite game that I've played this year was Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden Dawn kind of had the inglorious moment of coming out just as Breath of the Wild did, so it got massively overshadowed, but it sold really well. This time, it came out, and a week later, Elden Ring came out, and so it got super overshadowed again, but it's been selling well. They're going to do a VR stuff. Netflix apparently is doing a TV show. But Horizon Forbidden West continues the story of Aloy in a post apocalyptic future where humanity screwed itself over and they released, basically decided to kind of go underground and release these different AI machines to kind of protectively terraform the world. And it went a little wrong, and there are now robot dinosaurs. And the first game I just played through and just loved this. I love the story. It was compelling. The main character is compelling. She's a young woman who's on a kind of solo adventure, and she talks to herself, which actually makes sense. And while she's kind of pointing out the world, she's also kind of lost in it. So it's an exploratory model of informing the player of the world, but also of her, which is great. And the sequel just ups that by introducing by she's going to a newer part of the world as the story continues to just evolve. And I think maybe 120, 130 hours into it. It was a day one buy for me because the original property I had bought like well after it came out. But when I did, and I finished it, they had just released the expansion, the Frozen Wilds, and I immediately bought and kept playing that. And so I enjoy the little nuances of how they make you care about her and care about her journey. And it is a rare game in which the protagonist, whether male or female, is not romantically involved with anyone. She's just on her journey. She's capable. Yes, she does have friends who come and assist her, but her journey is largely solo. And she even deals with that. And what emotional kind of trauma and issues that she deals with are her past, of who she is and who raised her and why she is the only one that is able to do the things that she can. And I just love that.
Yeah, I'm still playing through the first game, so I haven't gotten to Forbidden West yet. But it is a fantastic mechanic, and the world is fascinating to move around.
Yeah, there's just little things that they do this time, because they've had 4 or 5 years to buff up the engine. I'm playing it still on my PS4 because I haven't been able to get a PS5, and it still looks amazing. And they were able to do little things with her now that like when we're moving through like snow and stuff, she'll sometimes just stop. If you let the control idle because you're looking around trying to figure something out, she'll kind of like be in her basic stop animation, but then she'll like roll her shoulders or hug herself. She'll look into the sky. She sometimes tries to catch snowflakes on her tongue. There's like parts where where you're having to do kind of like platforming sections where she's balancing on things, and she'll kind of like gently wobble like her body and like shift her arms out. It's these kind of like crazy little nuances that are like make you more invested that you are kind of only maybe lightly controlling this character. And the world just feels good, like, and it is a little saturated with so many weapon mechanics and skill mechanics and stuff like that, but at the same time it allows you to customize how you want to play the game.
In the first game especially, like, there are certain enemies where you have to, like, lay traps and tripwires and certain things to even have a chance at surviving them, no matter how powerful of a level you've gotten to. The way you have to fight these monsters, robots, whatever, you have to strategize, which is something I don't necessarily do. Like I booted up Zero Dawn for the first time in a few weeks, just a couple days ago, and I found these like enormous robots that I was like, okay, let's just start shooting arrows and see what happens. Because I saw it was like a level 36 or something, and like the most important mission that I have, or the most difficult mission that I have, is like a level 25. So I'm like, oh, I'm overpowered. I'm OP. I can just take these guys out. No, you dumbass.
Yeah, I mean, this game continues that. Like, I maxed out eventually everything right before the end, and I would still wander into an area, and something would smack me, and I died. And be like, okay, well, now I know where that is, and I'm going to sneak up on it and see what happens. But yeah, it's a good game that gets overlooked by equally good games, but it was just my favorite because I really love a good story for a game. I'll play a game with terrible graphics if it has a good story. Like I've been playing Vampire the Masquerade a lot, Bloodlines, which came out in like 2005 in a half finished state, but fans of it have patched it so that it actually runs well. That it has terrible graphics, but a great story. And I love the story, and I love when I can relate to a character so well, and I feel protective of a character. Like there's a game that came out a while back called Hellblade. It was a game that dealt a lot. They worked with people who are experiencing mental issues to make sure that they give this character an accurate journey, not a stereotypical Hollywood journey. And that game was another game that also made me feel super protective. Like I want to play this game and win, but I want to make sure I don't harm my character in the process. And I want Aloy to win in Horizon Forbidden West, and I want to see how she reacts with her new friends. And I know I mentioned before, but it bears repeating again. They don't put a love plot in this game, which is something you would expect, and I like that. She's a solo independent person who is driven on her own and a good role model.
This is basically Sony's Breath of the Wild, and I think the only thing that they did not really improve on from Breath of the Wild is the farming mechanic. Like you spend way too much time collecting materials.
Yep.
You spend way too much time trying to find materials so you can craft new arrows and trip mines and everything. Like just let me find weapons somehow, or like let me just be able to manufacture weapons and find arrows.
So something I will say is that continues, but thankfully there's an inventory system this time. But there's something that I will slightly spoil for you as you beat the game. When you beat that game, you end up with, or you find throughout the process, this really badass armor that is kind of overpowered. And at the beginning of this game, they do something that I hate and love at the same time. She comes out and Aloy is wearing that armor. But she immediately mentions to the person who's talking to her, "Oh, it got depowered like a while back ago because it does run like on batteries or something like that." Then he's like, "Hey, what happened to all your other gear?" And she went, "Yeah, it was a rough time." So immediately it's like, okay, back to basics. But, and this is something I love, she teaches her friend how to hunt. So by teaching the player, they don't necessarily like be like, oh, Aloy has to learn to hunt again and how to craft. No, what happens is Aloy's teaching somebody else so that you know how to as a player because she's capable. I love it. Anyway, what was your favorite game?
So I've got 2 listed down here because I couldn't pick just one of things. The first one I'm gonna go with, actually looking through the list of 2022 game releases, I don't think I actually played a 2022 game except for the game Tunic. But the first game I really wanna talk about is Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I did not play, but I watched Ricky play. And this is basically Pokemon's version of Breath of the Wild, but they did a lot of little things that I think improve on the Pokemon gameplay, which I'm not an expert on. I have only ever played Pokemon Sword, and that game sucks ass because Hop is just the fucking worst. He has so much unearned self-confidence, and I hate him. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I think the coolest thing that they did in this game is that they added in, like, a real-time element to throwing Pokeballs.
Oh, okay.
In the standard Pokemon games, like, basically, it's Final Fantasy rules. You walk up to a thing and a random encounter happens, or you see it
Right,
and you
right.
walk up to it and an encounter happens. Where in this one, you can like creep up, get to a certain point, and you can chuck a Pokeball at it and try and capture it without creating an encounter. Or you can throw your Pokemon and start a battle, and you can eventually decide to throw a Pokeball. And I thought that was a really cool mechanic. And it makes no sense to me that they did not implement that into Scarlet or Violet. I haven't played either of those. Ricky has. I haven't seen too much of the gameplay, but they didn't implement that. They just decided, like, hey, let's make the legendaries available from the start. And they're also going to be motorcycles. Like, that's fucking dumb. I'm sorry,
Okay.
but it's stupid. Ricky loves her Scarlet legendary. She thinks it looks like Toothless. I don't like it. I think it looks stupid, but that's just me. But Arceus looks fantastic from everything I know about it. It plays wonderfully. The only thing that it has any real issues that I can see is that there's like the standard Pokemon rendering issues where they never really push the graphic capabilities of their system. They just are like, we know what this is. It's a game mostly designed for players from age like 9 to 25 or 9 to 40, and we're not going to make this look like Breath of the Wild. We're just going to make it look like Pokemon, but we're going to take some Breath of the Wild elements and make it playable and good.
As someone who has completely missed the Pokemon train, is this not Ash Ketchum anymore, or
As far as I know, Ash is never really the protagonist of the games. I don't know for sure. I am not a Pokemon master. I am not a Pokemon anything. I play Pokemon Go with my family because that's like the part of the game that I enjoy is the capturing and collecting. Anything else about Pokemon, I do not care. I don't care about the trading card game. I don't care about anything else. I understand the idea of collecting, and I have fun with that. But with Arceus and through Sword and Scarlet that I've seen, you basically just get to create your character like, oh, I'm Chibi Josh or whatever, and I'm gonna go through this Galar area or this other area, and you just play the game. But I from what I've seen of Arceus, again, besides like the graphic limitations and just there is like this really weird formulaic problem that I think that the Pokemon company has with their games where they're just like, it's if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're not going to add voice acting to these because kids need to learn how to read or something. A lot of the gameplay seems very basic, but Arceus seemed like a good change of pace from the regular Pokemon games, but I haven't played it, so I can't really speak too much on it, but I do like the encounter system.
cool? So what was your other game?
The other game was Tunic, which I did talk about at length for a guest spot that I had on the Video Game Club, where it was just me and Slade. Tunic is a Zelda clone. It has some like Dark Souls element to it. You play as a little fox who's got a green tunic, and you have to go around and save the world. It's very similar to kind of I think it's Link's Awakening, the one where you're like playing through a dream.
It looks adorable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it does take like a Dark Souls kind of turn where the boss fights are very difficult. And there's some puzzles in the game where like you have to look up a guide. Like I don't know how anyone solved these things without a guide. Like if you did, I don't know how you did it. But it's a lot of fun, and I aside from like the difficulty spikes in the boss fights, I had a lot of fun with the game. It's not a typical game that I would play because there are so many like context clues that I don't pick up on because I do need my handheld. I'm not the best gamer ever. I will never claim to
How
be.
dare you? That's fun. I mean, he even has a little Link shield. It's
Yep,
adorable.
exactly. I would recommend it. If there was one flaw with the game, I would say it's the parrying system because you double click the right trigger and then there's like a half a second delay and then you'll parry, but like none of your enemies have one of those like wind up mechanics. They just immediately
Mm.
start hitting you. So like you can't be like, "Oh, they're about to hit. Oh, they're about to hit. Double click the right trigger." Like there's for me there was no way I could figure out how to time a parry, so I never used my shield. But let's move on to favorite movies from 2022. I know you're going to talk about Top Gun at length here, so I'm going to start with one of our best reviewed episodes, one of our most listened to episodes, Prey, which was a Hulu exclusive from August this year. That was just probably for me at least the best action movie I saw this year because I still haven't seen Top Gun.
Yeah, Prey was good. I need to rewatch that actually. I remember loving it when we reviewed it, and then it's kind of just somewhat drifted away as my consciousness, and I haven't rewatched it. I need to go back to it.
Well, we got inundated with so many TV shows. Like my TV list from this year is just massive. So I gotta burn through that a little bit.
Yeah, and then I was kind of like on my random horror movie binge from September to early November, and then I've been catching up on little things here and there. But oh, man, I really did love Prey. It was so well done.
Yeah, it was, Dan Trachtenberg directed, and it is a really nice reintroduction to the Predator franchise. I will be curious to see if they do a sequel and if they're going to kind of continue the story that was told through the credits,
Oh, I hope they
where
do.
our main character was kind of seemed to have been taken by the Predators and like adopted into their
Mm-hmm.
culture. So I'm very curious to see if they'll actually continue that or if that's going to be kind of shelved as like a one and done sort of thing, which I mean, nothing is one and done if it's well received anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta know how that flintlock pistol ends up back on the Predator ship to be handed to Danny Glover. I need to know. So, Top Gun Maverick, we did not. I don't. I think I've mentioned that I went and saw, but I don't think we reviewed it, did we? No.
We did not review it
Yeah,
because I was on the road when that came out, and then it just became a timing issue where like there's no reason to review it because it had been out for so long.
but at the same time, it had been out for so long that it was amazing because it just kept going and going
Yeah,
and.
and I also have a weird thing with Tom Cruise where like he's a horrible person and I try not to see his movies when I can, but I I am so upset at myself that I will be at Mission Impossible 7 when that comes out, like opening night.
Now, to protect ourselves from lawsuits, you believe allegedly he's a horrible person.
Oh no, he's definitely a horrible person.
Oh, he's litigious.
He has that charisma that people kind of forgive his horribleness. But like the fact that he surrounds himself with a bunch of people that could look similar to Katie Holmes in certain angles and just
Allegedly.
it creeps me out. It
Allegedly.
creeps me out.
Allegedly.
He's a horrible person who is mentally
Allegedly.
abusive to his partners,
Allegedly.
a- and he's in a cult,
Allegedly.
and he is just an awful person.
As your lawyer, allegedly.
He makes damn good movies, and I hate it.
Okay, that part is we can't contest in court. He does make damn good movies. So, my favorite movie of this year is going to be Top Gun Maverick. It's now out on Paramount Plus, as I posted on the socials.
Yeah,
So,
anything praising a Tom Cruise movie is coming from Alex, by the way. That's my disclaimer.
allegedly. So there are things you can pick at the movie that obviously are just issues. That there's a little bit of pacing. The third act goes off a little off the deep end for about the last 6 or 7 minutes, and then buys itself back. But the biggest thing about the movie is that it's just a well done story. It like the first one, they never mention that it's obviously the Russians that that we're fighting or whatever. So that makes it kind of timeless. It's just the enemy fighter jets we're going against. This one does a very similar thing where they mention it's a rogue nation and it's a different military power, and they never reference, even though it seems kind of obvious, or probably suggesting Iran or something like that. And it it continues Maverick's story in that he is still himself as this kind of hotshot fighter pilot. But instead of really tearing him down, that he's kind of like a washed up kind of loser who can't get out of the military kind of thing, they give you reasons as to why he wants to stay in the military, why he wants to be a fighter pilot and hasn't been promoted to a desk job. And there are a lot of callbacks to the originals. Some of them are a little like kind of on the nose because of course there's another beach scene, kind of volleyball esque scene, but it also works in the moment because it's nostalgia and callbacks that are done without necessarily hammering you over the head how important this is, or you should be cheering right now because of this line drop. I admit I cried because there is a beautiful scene with Iceman and him where you see Val Kilmer's always been a fantastic actor, but Val Kilmer's gone through a lot of personal things over the last 10 years where he's had cancer of the throat and some other stuff happen where he's lost his voice. and it's obviously changed how he looks. But there is an amazing scene where Iceman and Maverick talk to each other about basically their journey over the last 35 years or whatever since the first movie came out. It's almost speaking about their career paths as actors, where kind of Tom Cruise has always remained like this not catastrophic, this explosion of an actor. Who's always just been in the air. I mean, he's in the zeitgeist continuously as I make these big movies. Whereas Val Kilmer kind of like took a different path where he isn't a fighter pilot anymore. He became, he went the career path of like character actor and kind of legacy person who's a background person now, especially with his health issues. And it's almost a commentary on that, and it is done so well where you actually see these two iconic generation transcending stars just have an emotional moment with each other that I just kind of cried a bit. I was just like, because I am seeing now as a 38-year-old man, I'm seeing these aging actors who have been in many various forms my heroes, cinematic heroes, kind of acknowledge that their time is passing by very, very quickly, and how they acknowledge that with each other, especially like Val Kilmer. I mean, I every once in a while like being snarky. I just say the Doc Holliday line from Tombstone of like, "I'll be your Huckleberry." And it's just so beautiful. There's just good moments, and the action, of course, is fantastic because they actually filmed the damn thing in actual jets and stuff like that. It's a good movie where it's an acknowledgement of the past, a look to the future, and it tries to make itself timeless without by its references almost or of itself rather than of a cultural moment. And I really dug it.
Speaking of underappreciated things, Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's another one of my favorite movies from 2022. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to talk too much about it because you really can't dive too deep into it without spoiling things. But essentially, Michelle Yeoh plays a character who has become a chosen one, kind of like Neo in the Matrix, but in a much more clever way. Or I should say, in a more not in a more like the Matrix is the Matrix for a reason, but like it's not that blatantly of a ripoff. Like they do it well enough that you're like, this is fun. But the way she acquires new abilities is she taps into the multiverse and she taps into one of her other multiversal lives and absorbs their skills by basically connecting their consciousness. So she's existing in her multiverse self and her present self. And it's a beautiful movie. And it's funny, but it's heartfelt. There's a moment where two rocks talk to each other in complete silence and you're going to cry. And it's just fantastic.
Oh,
And then the other movie that I saw this year that I really just like has stuck with me is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I did not think I would enjoy that movie as much as I did.
heck yeah.
But it is so good, and apparently it's one of the biggest box office bombs of the year. But I think that's probably because a lot of people were in the same boat as I was, whereas like I'm not going to spend money to see this movie about Nick Cage giving himself a blowjob. Like that doesn't happen in the movie, but it kind of if you watch the trailer, it kind of feels that way, where it's like this is just Nick Cage trying to be like, oh, people are making fun of me because I make 35 movies a year at $1 million a pop, and
Yeah.
it's so good and it's so fun, and I think Pedro Pascal really kind of steals the show in the movie,
Hmm.
but Nick Cage does a fantastic job as well. I do think the wig is a little distracting just because we know that's not his actual hair. His hairline is much further back, but he has like Chris Evans' hair from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You're like, that's not your hair, man. Like, just accept it. But the movie is a lot of fun, and like, I don't like gratuitous drug scenes, but this movie has a gratuitous drug scene that is hilarious.
So I didn't realize we're gonna acknowledge multiple movies. So I would
Yeah,
like to
I can't
throw out.
peg just one thing as like my favorite, so I can't.
So I will throw out my probably second favorite movie of the year, which is Violent Night. David Harbour as a Viking Santa Claus is fantastic. It was a movie that came out and knew exactly what it wanted to be, which is that we're going to have Santa and we're going to recreate Die Hard. And in the movie, they acknowledge that because he even like at one point is like beating people up, and to protect himself, he moves his like bag in the way, and they stab into it, and the person pulls out presents, and he knows, of course, what the presents are, and he's like, and he says even something along the lines of like Frederick's Die Hard collection on Blu-ray, and then at one point, he because Trudy, the little girl, and he has her. She's like, okay, I'm gonna start preparing the house like Home Alone. It knows what it wants to be, and I love movies like that. I mean, you would expect me to say something like one of the Marvel movies or something like that, but
Oh,
nah.
people were probably expecting the same from me. Like, I would give an honorable mention to Wakanda Forever, but I do think getting to the Black Panther stuff in the final act really kind of hurts the movie. I can't really say that like Multiverse of Madness or especially Thor: Love and Thunder were like my favorite things. Like Multiverse of Madness was a lot of fun. Thor: Love and Thunder was not. Um, but I will get into some Marvel stuff when we start talking TV here in a second.
Speaking of which, I'll go first. Yes.
All right, so I've got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I've got 8 things on TV,
I was
but
just
you
going
already
in with
claimed first
one.
go. So yeah, like I said, I can't pick just one. But can I take a guess as to what your one is?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for 3 questions to see if I can't figure it out.
Okay.
Is it on streaming service?
No. But yes.
Oh, damn. No, but yes. Then I have no idea. I was gonna say it was probably Wednesday, but
No.
then
I
with
did
the
just
no, but
finish
yes, I
that.
don't know.
I will be mentioning that, but it was on streaming service. So I'm choosing this film as for this TV show is 2022 because its newest season came out in 2022. I love What We Do in the Shadows. It is
That
the
doesn't count. That's in like season 6.
four season four. It's been
Whatever. It's been
renewed through
around for
season
like 10
six.
years.
Yes, because it's taking the British model of like 6 episodes every 18 to 24 months. But I love it. It has a ongoing continuous storyline, which is fantastic for a sitcom, which is rare for most sitcoms where they're very much are bottle episodes. But it continues a through line of changing characters and characters' motivations and storylines and reasonings. And just when you think a show about vampires living in New Jersey cannot get any weirder, this season they introduced magic wish giving genies. One of the characters was CGI'd into a baby for a while, and then a teenager,
Oh
and then a young
yeah,
adult.
Colin Robinson.
Yes, and they start and burn down a nightclub like all within like 4 episodes. It is so weird, but it's the kind of on demand, just in the moment viewing that I actually love. And when I see it pop up on my DVR, I'm so happy it's back. I don't think I've started a new show this year that came out this year, other than Wednesday, actually.
So then let's talk a little bit about Wednesday because I did want to do that. We had an episode lined up where we were going to talk a little bit about it, but I did talk about the pilot episode on the last What You Doing, but I've finished this show since then, and it is I hate to admit how good it is because the original premise that they released with this show, like you were with me. Don't be
Yep.
laughing at me. You were with me. We were hating on this
Oh,
show left
oh,
and
I
right.
know.
Like
Oh,
there's
I
no
know.
reason for the way this premise laid out. There's no reason for the show to end up as good as it is. Because the premise was like, oh, it's a grown-up Wednesday. She's got powers where she can see the future and she's gonna be solving
Hmm.
crimes. It's like that sounds like a bunch of bullshit and it's so much better than what that premise came out with. And
Yes.
like it's like CW and HBO had a kid, and it was this show. And I still hate the monster. Like the monster still looks too much like a Tim Burton product, but everything
Oh, the
else about the
monster's
show I feel like is just
horrible.
on point.
like, I don't get how they got that past the CGI bullshit detector. Like, I don't.
Because it's
It's
Tim
terrible.
Burton, like, it had to look it had to look something like Tim Burton.
Yeah, but I mean, Beetlejuice still holds up for the most part, and it doesn't look like that bad. Whatever. But no, it's fun. I like the show. I like the cast that they have around her, and yeah, I mean, wife and I around episode 4 were like, "It's these people, right?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, definitely." And it took forever to get there, but it got there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
It's
followed,
still
like, the Glass
fun.
Onion model of who's the next famous person.
Yeah, it's just fun, and it's light, and it's kind of
Yeah,
cute, and it is
you
gorgeous
get,
to
like,
look
just
at.
enough Addams Family stuff too to, like,
Yeah,
satisfy the fact that it's an Addams Family spinoff, but it holds up as on its own really well.
it makes you feel for Thing, which is really funny. I
Yeah,
want,
Ricky
there.
let out an audible gasp at that one moment with Thing.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh no. I will contend the only thing that really pisses me off about the show is I do not accept the premise that the family sees Wednesday as an outcast and a problem and has to send her away. When you look at the TV, when you look at the source material of the TV shows, the original comic, which admittedly most of the comic actually didn't have dialogue, it's just little panels and stuff like that of them doing stuff, and it's kind of, it was weird because they're kooky. But when the generational collective understanding of these characters is the TV shows and the movies, that the family sees her as an issue and has to kind of like get rid of her, doesn't track motivationally for them.
See,
I don't
I
buy
didn't
that.
take it that way. I took it more as they wanted her to find a place to belong because she
Yeah,
intentionally makes herself an outcast. She's socially distant from people. She doesn't care about connecting with people. And for whatever reason, she resents Morticia, and Morticia is just trying to be a mother to her. And
yeah,
it's I don't take it as like the family's being like, "Oh, Wednesday, you're too weird. You need to go to this school." I think it's more we want you to try and have these life experiences that we had, even though you have no interest in them, or at least you say you don't.
yeah. But it's still kind of weird. They like talk about like 8 schools in like 4 years or 5 years, or whatever, and that this is your final hope kind of thing. Don't get kicked out of this one. It's so it just rubs wrong in many ways.
Yeah, because technically in a way they shouldn't care about public school
Exactly.
education because they're all actually like smarter than everyone else anyway because they have such a weird worldview that they don't buy into all the whitewashed history of the world. They know that Columbus was an asshole. They know
Yeah.
that the Crusades were not a holy war and all this sort of stuff. But they also like appreciate the death of it all.
I'm sorry, but Gomez is miscast. I understand the actor
Yeah, sorry,
looks,
Antonio.
yeah, looks accurate for the role. For to the character, but I do not buy those lines coming out of that mouth, and I do not
No.
buy the chemistry, or I'm sorry, the lack thereof of him and Morticia.
The voice is just not right. Like maybe he might have the look, but the voice isn't right.
Yeah, those two are a swing and a miss, and I'm actually really surprised by how well they did Fester. I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, this actually is working.
Yeah, Fred Armisen as Uncle Fester was really kind of engaging.
Yeah, but I mean, you move that motivation aside, which took me 2 or 3 episodes to kind of get through because I'm like, why does the family care about this? Why are they like acting like this with each other? What the hell? Why is Wednesday so pissed off? This is what the family. This doesn't make sense. What the hell is going on here? Once it got past that, I was like, I really just dug it. And her friend, her happy-go-lucky friend was fantastic. Her werewolf friend that can't wolf out was just amazing.
Yes.
It was just a lovely foil.
It's a really good supporting cast. I think the only one I really did not care for is the artist kid.
Yeah,
Like, he's obviously meant to be really off-putting at first, but like I said, this is like a CW show where everyone's like way too beautiful to be who they are and what they're doing. But like he does not fit that type at all, and they're clearly setting him up to be a kind of love interest down the line if they get to future seasons, which I'm sure Netflix has already greenlit like season 2, 3, and 4. But I don't buy him as like, oh, he's the most handsome boy in school. Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, he should have been wearing a red shirt with a fish on it as much the second he walked on camera. I mean, I did get some of his like pain from that or whatever. To touch briefly on the dance, which is fun and cute. Something that could slightly irk the shit out of me that I wonder if it was a CW note is that they get carried because of course they have to get carried with the normies attack put what looks like blood into the pipe system and get sprays all the outcasts for the outcast school, and it in the end Wednesday like licks it off of her, is just loving the moment and like licks it off of herself, and then it's like, oh, it's paint, should have been blood. I was like, they back up a sewer tanker of paint. That is way more expensive than blood. Have you been to Home Depot or Lowe's lately and priced a gallon of paint? Or I
Well,
mean,
they're the rich kids anyway, so like who
but you're
cares?
talking like 10, 20 grand of paint.
Mommy and daddy's credit cards can afford it.
I mean, if not like 50 for a sewer, like a tanker, it would be much cheaper to swing by a slaughterhouse. And I watch Dirty Jobs. I know you can buy it on the cheap.
Well, well, to also kind of talk about that dance scene, which again, super cute, fun. Apparently, Jenna Ortega had COVID while filming that scene, and
Yeah,
that's not something to be praised. Production needed to be shut down, and she needed to get healthy.
yeah. There was a
She
lot.
should not have been filming.
There's a lot of weird stories about that coming out about like, oh yeah, well she said she was, we said she was sick and we immediately tested her, but the results wouldn't come back for several hours. So we just filmed around it, and I know how movie filming goes, and I've been watching like a lot of I enjoy the minutia of how things are filmed and what goes on, and especially all like the filming regulations and stuff for COVID that studios have had to or not had to follow, depending on which states, cities, or even like counties are in. And I'm sorry, can they not afford a rapid test? Especially when you're around, because basically the way COVID regulations were is that they make different levels where you're allowed to stand and or be during filming, and one of them, like, and you have like the main cast are supposed to be within their own little bubble, and then you have like supporting cast, guest stars, which are in a secondary bubble, and then you have extras, which are like a third bubble, and then you have the directors who are their own bubble, the editors and that bubble, all this crazy crap. That's why Tom Cruise went nuts last year, and that audio leaked about him yelling at people for breaking protocols. Which, by the way, I'm on his side because COVID's a real thing. That they chose to ignore all that when she woke up saying, "I feel terrible, sore throat, headache, fever, all this crap," and they were like, and they briefly tested her, and then decided to wait for hours or wait hours and keep filming until they got a result, is a little suspect of what's going on. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird. Like, because there's been conflicting storylines about how the testing went and when they supposedly didn't feel well compared to, but that's all its own thing. But it is a cute as hell dance. And
Yes.
there's a goth singer that I've followed forever named Voltaire, who released a book in the late 90s called What is Goth, that has how to dance like a goth, and a lot of those little moves are in there because those are just goth moves from the 70s and 80s goth clubs, of
Nice.
which he is a cabaret singer for.
So Wednesday must see favorite
Oh
things
yeah.
from 2022. So to kind of break into my list here real quick, because we've talked about these at the show, we don't need to dive into them. She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel, still a lot of fun. Things I would definitely recommend. Andor, probably the best Star Wars thing we've seen since Empire. Maybe Rogue One, if you want to argue. We talked about House of the Dragon, and I still find it obscene that our guy Patty Considine did not get nominated for a Golden Globe. I don't know
Yep.
if it was just like overpacked or if Discovery didn't want more positive press for their product that they bought for however billions dollars, and like they just did not submit him for nomination because they didn't want positive press surrounding this. I don't know, but Patty Considine is an amazing actor in that show, and he carries that show. By the time he's gone, the last 2 episodes are I'm like, I want Viserys back. But other things we didn't talk about this year, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite thing or a favorite thing from this year, but the Halo series from Paramount Plus, it was interesting. It was something that I did want to talk about on the show, but we had like the supermassive interview come up, and I just kept getting pushed, and it's like, all right, at this point, it's just not worth talking about. But I think it's kind of worth watching. I don't know if it's something that is for everyone because it does definitely drag, and they're busy setting up the finale. And I think they definitely could have gotten there faster. There's a storyline that they're setting up for more stuff in season 2, but it goes nowhere really in season 1. It's just annoying.
So I will briefly mention three other shows that I completed and liked from this year that actually came out this year.
As is the
So I'm gonna
rules.
lump these. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna lump these together as one show: Reacher and The Terminal List. The reason why I'm lumping these together as one show is because they're both about overly buff ex-military or current military dudes who go on a rampage mission to solve a murder that's affecting their lives. Now, I loved Reacher because while the Tom Cruise Reacher movies were fun, he was not a 6'6" huge dude who could intimidate anybody by walking into a room and beating the crap out of them. The Reacher show rectifies that, but it also has some of the best action that I've just seen in a made for TV show that I wish more movies would just wantonly steal and actually have filmed, because it seems like we're kind of getting that John Wick actually controlled action, good camera clarity in movies, but it's just taking so long to get there. And The Terminalist, again, is just a military dude with clear action and a interesting an interesting plot line involving a murder that has to be solved. And I really like that we're getting slightly different kind of procedural TV shows on streaming that aren't just we're a private eye or we're a police force. And you could argue that there's some weird politicky things that are that could happen, that some people might say, well, this is this point of view or this is the other. I don't give a crap about that. I just like a good, well-made story that I can actually cohesively understand and follow. Those two shows
And
did it for me, and
I
they
will say for Reacher, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
no, you're fine.
But I will say for Reacher, Alan Richardson, I haven't watched the show, but Alan Richardson, who plays Jack Reacher, he definitely upgraded from playing a semi-regular role on Titans to this.
Hmm.
I haven't seen it, but I know this is already better quality than Titans because Titans sucks.
I mean, you can't argue with that. Titan does suck.
Season 4 of Titans started, and I'm dreading starting that.
My last thing would be Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. It is a anthology series that came out on Netflix and was probably the best thing I watched. That and the best horror thing I watched during my September to November binge of old and new horror movies. I mean, I liked Nope. I really loved Smile. The new Halloween was, but Cabinet of Curiosities was just, I think, 8 episodes of basically stories he picked and then had his friends write and film, and he handpicked the writers and the writer directors and some of the cast, and it was just it was lovely to see well made and like 30 to hour long episodes of horror. And obviously he's a fan of Hitchcock, of like wanting to tell creepy stories or like morality tales that aren't quite outer limits, or dang it, I can't think of the other one from the 60s that came back so many times. Creepy
Twilight
show.
Zone,
Thank you, Twilight Zone.
The
That's all I got.
Scary Door.
Yeah.
So for me, the last 2 TV shows that I really have, one is a series of shorts from Disney Plus called Baymax, which just kind of
Oh
continues the
yeah.
story of Baymax as a healthcare companion, and they're all just super cute, and I love them. And there's some great representation going on there, and it just there's an episode where a girl gets her period for the first time, and it happened like shortly after Turning Red came out, and I think Baymax actually kind of handled that a little bit better because it wasn't distracted by telling a story of becoming a giant red panda and family drama as well. Which I mean, Turning Red was cute. I enjoyed that one a lot. But the Baymax episode just it hits you in the feels, especially as a parent of is something that really gave me a bearing on how to go when those sort of situations happen. But the other show that I wanted to talk about was Rings of Power, which again I wanted to do like a review episode for it, but I didn't finish it in time where it would be timely. And then we just kind of kept doing other things, and we just never got around to it. But I enjoyed it for what it is. Like it's yes, it's a slow burn, but I liked the building of the mythology of Middle Earth. And like as someone who's not just completely inundated into the Tolkien lore, I know enough about Lord of the Rings through the movies that I'm like, oh, this is building towards this. Oh, this is building towards this. So it's kind of exciting to see where all these things are going. But also just because I don't know everything, there's still lots of turns and surprises that happen.
I'm quiet because I have nothing kind to say, and we said we were going to be nice on this episode.
It's true, even though I've already dissed DC's Titans a few times and a few other things. But yeah, you're not going to talk bad about one of my favorite things from this year.
No, nope.
So let's move on. Our favorite relaxing activity for 2022.
You skipped over my suggestion of TV show of previous year that I watched. How dare you?
We're talking about the previous year. I didn't understand what you meant by the previous year.
You jackass.
You said 2022 previous year, and like yeah, 2022 is now the previous year. I don't know what the heck the difference is between favorite TV show of 2022 and favorite TV show of the previous year, because 2022 is the previous year.
Fine, I won't talk about my X-Files rewatch. I will move on to relaxing activity.
Thank you. You should have been more clear in your suggestions.
Something that came out 48 years ago.
Do, 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 do. That's not anywhere near the theme, but I'm not going to break everyone's eardrums by trying to whistle.
Anyway, this year was the year that I got back to playing Dungeons and Dragons truly in person again. And see, I find, as I've mentioned, so I won't go into it too long, but I find role play relaxing. I find running a game relaxing. I've been able to this year kind of retire a little bit my forever DM hat, and because one of my friends asked me to be in his game, and I've been able to be in his game. My wife has been started running her own game as well, so I actually get to make characters and play in others. And there are several different schools of thought, and like if you're a bit of a groganard and you look at D&D, you look at it as it's the players versus the DM, and it's a contest of wills to crush the DM and ruin their plans. And then of course the DM is supposed to be the person who wants to just smash their feelings and wreck them and kill their characters. But no, Dungeons and Dragons over the last quite a long while, and especially with its resurgence in the last 10 years or so, has become about as a cooperative storytelling space where yes, characters can and should die. The DM should be challenging the characters. But what I like about that I find relaxing and enjoyable about playing this year is a 3-year campaign. My campaign's going on right now is winding to a close, and the characters are like level 15 now. They are being really challenged. They're finding out the story missions, or making their plans to save the world. And then also my spouse started her game, and she ended the first big arc of it, told the story that she wanted to, and it was so lovely seeing the other characters' reactions to her story, mine as well, because I didn't know about it, what was going on, but also her joy in completing a story that she came up with something. She's been playing for less like with me for like the last 12, 15 years in different other people's games, but she's taking control and running her own game and her own part of the world and leading people through it, and seeing her joy as people make revelations and intuitive leaps, but also add lore to her story that she's like, oh, that's good. Because every DM does that. You just have gaps in your world that you don't know what to do with, and your players will sometimes just fill in a gap, and you're like, perfect, plot solved. And that's what I've been really enjoying this year is the relax. Like I look forward to playing Dungeons and Dragons with friends, playing Vampire the Masquerade, playing Hunter the Reckoning, my weekly or bi-weekly games.
All right. Well, for me, when I have the time, either prior to bed or when the kids are off at school and I don't have to deal with work stuff, reading comics has been my relaxing activity. It just kind of like your D&D thing, where just immersing myself in these stories and in these worlds and with these characters, it it takes my brain off of all the crappy things going on in the world. That's kind of it for me. Our next activity, I'm going to kind of go a little deeper because I could say like my relaxing activity is podcasting, but I think it fits more into this next thing, which is favorite friend activity from 2022. Which for me it has been podcasting. I've made some great relationships and friends through the podcast community in the last year. I created this podcast so I can have these nerd talks with my friends that I've made through work and just personal, like school and everything. I've known Matt since junior high. So, like, just all these friendships and relationships that I've had and that I have created through the podcast. That's been my favorite thing for this last year. Like, not saying that I didn't enjoy time with my family, like my family and I went to Disney World for 2 weeks in February this last year, and that was a lot of fun. But like this category is favorite friend activity, which I mean, my family, I would say they're my friends, but I don't think that's exactly what we're going for. So like, I'm gonna give a bunch of quick shout outs here. Video Game Club, thank you for having me on for the Jedi Fallen Order episode, as well as the Tunic episode, even though unfortunately Tim and Joey couldn't be there. Antonio at the Cult Worthy, thank you for Goofy Movie episode and the Father's Day episode. Silver Screensavers for the greatest beer run ever. Review it yourself. Sean, you're amazing. I don't know how you put out like 18 podcasts, but you do. And you put out so many episodes per week that I don't know how you have time for anything else. Multiverse of Badness, Mike, thank you so much for having me on and just the fun that we had there. Brendan and Matt at Unchefed, our Good Burger episode. I honestly listen to that episode probably once every 3 months just because it was such a fun conversation and I love just talking about it and hearing us talk about Good Burger. It's such a good time. And I know I've been on a few other podcasts, but they're not coming to mind off the top of my head here. And I apologize, but thank you. Oh, Raphael at the Geeky Dad, Caesar at No on 15, Special K and Matt at the oh god, um, the For Real podcast. There we go. Sorry guys, it's almost 10 o'clock at night, and I got like 5 hours of sleep last night because last night was New Year's Eve. So it's it's just a day, and we're winding down here. But thank you to everyone who has reached out to me and or everyone else on the podcast, and especially thank you to Alex, Matt, Becky, Beppo, Scotty, Lewis, everyone who's on the thumbnail, Ricky. This year has been so much fun because of the podcast and like my favorite friend activity because I love all you guys, and again just the relationships and friendships that this podcast has created and built upon, just kind of reinforced. It's just been fantastic, and I appreciate everything that everyone has done for us this last year. And also shout out to Josh and Amanda Wilson from Super Familiar with the Wilsons, Karen and Ann at Sugar Coated Murder, Matt at Decaying with the Boys, Justin at the Movie Wire, all you guys. Love you guys. Thank you so much for just being supportive of us this last year. Alex, what were some of your favorite friend activities for this year?
I was just thinking, we should probably edit this so that my response is before yours, because that was
No, you get to
lovely.
follow that up.
Uh, so I'm gonna go with video games. I started kind of getting out of the house a little bit
Sorry, I
more.
don't mean to laugh, but it's like it's such a weird like, oh Josh, you made friends and did things with people, and I sat in front of my TV with a controller in my hand and watched stories that I was interacting with.
No, no, kind of, but it it's group.
But I had my cats and my wife next to me. That no, we were talking about friend activities. So obviously you're talking about multiplayer games where you're playing
Yeah,
with people.
yeah. I'm a huge Destiny 2 fan, which is somewhat difficult to defend these days with how microtransaction they try to be. But I have several friends who I play that with, and and being able to group up with them and just play with them. And then some of my friends shifted over to Call of Duty, the Warzone, which is just jump in there, which has been really fun. My brother and I have been playing Dead by Daylight together. We were moving to Evil Dead the game, which that's a franchise that won't die, and it's a really fun game actually. We've been playing that together. There's a mod that we're going to use to play Resident Evil 5 and 6 together, my brother and I, which is going to be really fun to do. It's a way to interact with friends and family that spans the distance and is not as painful as a phone call. Which, yeah, I am starting to become really one of those people who, if you call me, I might hit Google screen this call. Why aren't you just texting me or sending me a Discord? But there's a different expectation and weight that if like, hey, I'm gonna call you or text or whatever, or like, okay, let's go meet up for lunch or maybe play a board game or something like that and like learn something new. There's a different expectation where like we can just stay at our homes and we can put a few rounds together of a game, 20 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, whatever we might have. And while we are being distracted by these flashy, pixels and lights and explosions, we also are talking. We're talking about our day. We're like we're encouraging each other, like, hey, blah blah. Someone's coming from the right. Hey, I need healing. Oh, the bad guy's over there. I think. Oh my god, the guy's coming to kill me. Oh, I'm dead. Yeah, and I like that. And that's what I also mentioned. It Takes Two when I said my favorite video game of the year because there's not many couch co-op games still being made because of the push for online only, continuously updated games as a service kind of thing going on. So that yeah, I can just pop on the couch with my spouse and play It Takes Two or the Sackboy Adventure. And there's a Sackboy racing game that we're gonna play.
Have you guys tried A Way Out yet?
That actually, It Takes Two is by A Way Out. That was
Yeah,
their
that's what I
first
was
game.
asking.
I have not. I was debating getting it. Is it any good?
I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Shawshank meets The Fugitive meets
Oh,
Scarface.
I'm gonna give that a shot then. Like, there's not a whole lot of games that also do couch like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and I think Baldur's Gate. They're doing Baldur's Gate 3 is gonna have that, but it's difficult to find a lot of games like that lately. But when it can, it's good, and I like that. I like the that video games should be, in my opinion, unless it's like a solo player game or something like that. There should be a little bit of a relaxing communal aspect, and that's why friend activity other than D&D is video games because they take a lot of the pressure away of having to communicate and be real with people, but also they give you an ease of access to communicate, move from topic to topic, and also build something together.
I can definitely understand that. That's where so many of my friendships with GameStop employees were solidified, and that's where Scotty, Becky, and I, or Lewis as well. We all just kind of we worked together, but then we also played together, and it just blossomed those friendships. So let's move into our final category here, which is favorite comics and or books that we've read this year. Alex, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
My favorite comic this year is Something is Killing the Children. The main writer's name is Taylor something the fourth. I always forget his name. I know he had a long Batman run for a while, and this is now the Tinian the fourth. That's his name. I saw the title and was like, what? Okay, this is kind of odd, but I was just intrigued enough and especially the main character's name is Erica Slaughter, where I'm like, something's killing children, and the heroine's name is Erica Slaughter. Okay, this is going to be so bad. But I'm a sucker for, horror movies and gore and stuff like that. So I picked it up. And what I found instead was a compelling story about loss and revenge, trauma of childhood, and looking for a protector. And I was just kind of, and I bought because it came out on the original, like, issues 1 through 5 were in trade paperback. They came out, and I picked them up, and I saw 6 through 10 was coming out like right afterwards, and I immediately bought that one. And then they put a big omnibus together for 1 through 15 in November, and I picked that up even though I had already bought the first three. I just really am invested in this world in which the monster hunters are real, and the monster under your bed as a child might actually be real as well. And it just gets me. I didn't have the greatest childhood and don't need to go into anything like that, but having that kind of conceptualized in a more, I wouldn't say romantic way, but it's good. And I am impressed by how mature the storyline is and how invested I am in finding out if Erica Slaughter will kind of avenge the children that are being hunted. That's my favorite comic book.
Just to kind of throw a suggestion out there, if you enjoy horror comics, Maniac in New York is another good one to look into. It's basically this world where it's New York obviously, but it's this world where this killer has been striking, and the general public, kind of like what happened with masks during the pandemic, the general public, or at least portions of the public, have decided they don't care anymore. They're going to live their lives, and they're going to, if they get killed, they get killed. And so like there's no MO to what the killer is doing. It's more or less an allegory for like global warming, but it's so intriguing as to how the people in this world are responding to the killer, or like responding publicly about the killer, because again, they might get killed tonight by the killer, but they don't care. They're going to live their lives until they don't have one anymore. So Maniac in New York, from Aftershock Comics, written by Elliot Callan and art by Andrea Moody. But another really good horror comic that I could recommend would be Infidel, which is a little bit older, but I'm forgetting the writer's name at the moment. I'm not gonna grab my phone and type it out real quick. But Jason Campbell does the art as well, and the art is just gorgeous, despite this being a horror story. And it's so cool. And like those are two horror books I would recommend, which I'm not a horror person at all, but Maniac in New York and Infidel would be two really strong recommendations for me for horror comic readers.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I get like comics like this is like either the new series are ongoing or they're like just kind of like limited run series is that I've debated trying to like pick up like Spider-Man, Batman, Thor, like pick a like Deadpool or something, and I can just get so overwhelmed of like there's like 17 series. Which one do I start on? Do I have to have read the original 900 before starting this? Why is there a new Spider-Man one? Deadpool 17? I look for different series like that. Like I like the trade paperbacks. Like okay, 1 through 5, and this is an interesting title, something like that. Like I did for a long time read the Amanda Connor's run, Harley Quinn run, but then like she left it, and I'm like, oh, so it. So I'm more drawn to like things like that, where it's like something a little off the side, something where I don't expect it to run 70 issues that seems to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of that more from the independent comic writers than you are gonna get from like Marvel, because obviously they really can't end the story because they need to keep going so they can keep making money. Like on our Discord, which you should join our Discord if you haven't, Matt talks about the new Amazing Spider-Man run every now and then, where there's a guy who back in the 80s was just a guy with a shotgun. But in this current run, he was resurrected, and now his shotgun can absolve sins. He's called the Sin Eater, and he shoots Norman Osborn with this magic shotgun, and now Norman Osborn is like cleansed of the goblin spirit essentially, but he still has like the goblin powers if he like the super soldier serum essentially. And he's dealing with like the mental trauma of like, if I get on a glider, if I put on a suit again, will the goblin come back? What's going to happen? Like it's really good and interesting stuff, but it's such a deep cut to be like, oh, by the way, there's this guy from the 80s who was once hired to try and kill Spider-Man with a shotgun. We just resurrected him, and now he has superpowers, and he's giving people second chances and forgiving their sins and whatnot. Like it's weird, but it's good stuff. But Amazing Spider-Man is on my list because there's some good stuff going on. There's a new Ben Riley storyline going on that, like, even for someone like me who hasn't been reading Spider-Man continually since the Clone Saga, I'm able to follow it pretty well, even though there is some like X-Men tie-in stuff happening right now as well. Nightwing, Tom Taylor's run started back in like 2021, I believe, but it's been going on to a point where people started really hyping it up. So I'm like, all right, let's read this on DC Universe. Oh man, this is really good. So I picked up, I like went back on eBay and bought as many back issues as I could and caught up on the single issues. And yeah, Tom Taylor's Nightwing is fantastic. Bruno Redondo on art is just fantastic. And then the other thing that obviously anyone who has listened to me for the last year, anything within the Massive verse, pick it up as soon as you can, because Radiant Black, Supermassive, The Dead Lucky, Rogue Sun, all of it is just fantastic. It's great stuff and it's really engaging. Rogue Sun is probably my favorite one from this last year. Infernal Go Red is probably right behind it, even though technically single issues of that are coming out starting this month. But I backed the Kickstarter, so I got a digital copy early.
Ooh.
Rogue Sun's just so cool. It's about a son who takes on the mantle of the superhero Rogue Sun from his father, who is estranged, and so he hates his father. But the catch is, the previous Rogue Sun will train the new Rogue Sun through mystical elements within the suit. So like he has to learn how to be the Rogue Sun while his dad is trying to teach him, but he hates his dad. So like it's really cool relationship stuff.
That sounds really awesome.
Yeah, strongly recommend it. If it's tied to the Massive verse, I would recommend reading it. And with that, I believe it is time to start wrapping up, just like 2022 just did.
Way to tie it in.
Yep, put a bow on it, just like we did at Christmas. I missed 2 weeks of all this stuff, so I've got a bunch of stuff backlogged and ready to go in the holster here. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh_Scar. You can follow the podcast at Talking Smack Pod. As I mentioned earlier, please join our Discord. There's a link in the episode description. Lots of fun conversations right now. Like Matt is pretending to be former Nintendo America's CEO, Reggie something or other. And it's driving slaves from Video Game Club insane, and it's hilarious. You can email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes, and Beppo and Retro Ale Studios for our avatars. Please like, subscribe, review, find us on your social media platform of choice. We aren't on Instagram or anything like that. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Hive, and Post at the moment. Also YouTube, which I would love to get more into streaming or Let's Plays or anything like that. Unfortunately, I don't think we will have the time, but I would like to do that somewhat semi-regularly. We don't have any new episode or podcast reviews, so we won't read those, but please leave reviews as you're able or as you feel the want. And we previously had guests on for like the last 3 weeks, so please follow Raphael on Geeky Dad. Please follow Caesar on No on 15. Please follow Justin at the Movie Wire. Please follow Karen and Ann at the Sugar Coated Murder podcast, and also buy their book. It's a great book. I started reading it and it's really interesting. So definitely recommend it for anyone who is a big true crime murder fan. Alex, who is doing our theme music this week?
Lady Gaga has decided to grace us with her presence and write a ballad for us.
This is because of Top Gun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Tom Cruise is a horrible person.
Allegedly.
Thanks to everyone for listening, and take care.
Bye.
Tom Cruise sucks.
Allegedly.